Hello and welcome. Here we are again, the Marianne and Karina duo on Tuesday, 10 a.m. Mountain, as usual. And we have came up with a really interesting title yesterday in our conversation about what's going on, what is asking to be talked about. And what we noticed is going into the silence how much more awareness and therefore how much more light, quote unquote, can be turned on. And since I was doing my own solo flight last week, I'm passing it on to Marianne to start this week.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Karina. And thank you for going all by yourself last week.
it was
And I
so
can
scary.
say, I can say my point of view, and that's only an interesting point of view, was that you did a really great job. I loved
Thank
it.
you.
It expanded my world listening to your, what you did had to say last week. So how does it get any better than this, Karina?
Yeah.
And yes, yesterday we had a really interesting
Mhm.
conversation as it was about something that was going on in my world, as not noticing it or not acknowledging it directly as a silence. There was an urge in a matter of speaking of going in the wrongness as though I was watching and noticing that so many people in the business, quote unquote, are pumping it up as though, oh, I have to do this and I have to do this, and now I have to pull out in the world this and this and this and this. It's like, and the Black Friday thing also, it's all about discounts. And so it's there was that energy for me really notable of hmm, doing, but doing as following. And I can be come out with a better offer, and I can do this better. And yes, I want to sell this. And that energy of
Mhm. A competition.
a competition that as though I noticed for me some complete opposite energy showing up as more space, also more silence. And at the same time, that silence is not that silent, as though there is a lot more hearable for me when I'm choosing to go into the space of silence. And I notice that there is so much more creation ongoing, and it is a creation for the future. So,
Mhm.
as though there is so much energy now as closing the year, closing the business year, closing up and towards a target financially. Sometime they rushing things through, where I am in a space of silence, which is already creating for the future. So it's not a closing up, but the opposite, opening
Mhm.
doors. And that was where I saw yesterday, wow, in this silence space, the light is going on as it is not even dark. It is so much
Mhm.
more lighter. So yeah, what's up in your world with towards this subject of silence and light and creation and future?
Um, the first thing I have to say is I like silence. I have a hard time to, or it wasn't true as a teenager or even in my 20s and 30s. I could enjoy music or noise and still be creative. But nowadays, I just like it silent.
Mm,
If I listen to music, then I want to listen to the music. If I watch something, I want to be present with what I'm watching. And for me, silence is a deep relaxation, while at the same time allowing all the thoughts and being present with those and almost sorting and, oh yeah, I like this, no, this one isn't that much, and being creative in the silence. For me, that
mm,
is true.
yeah.
And how much being willing to be in silence are we willing and able to hear the whispers of the future, the whispers of what is in the air, so to speak, that wants to be created, that wants to come forth. And if
Yes.
I'm constantly bombarded with stuff, I don't have the space to hear that.
Yeah, and that is something crucial, as you mentioned several crucial points without making them important or significant, but it's space. It is the being present. It is allowing to hear the whispers that wants to create and that leads often to different actions, taking different actions because of the space and the awareness and being present and willing to hear everything. And as I'm saying it, I notice also in silence, there is a lack of distraction
Mm-hmm.
due to the presence. And that thing was how many people do choose now in this period of time in the holidays time to be distracted of what truly is and going on for them and what is true for them, because how many people are using going out and buying presents and doing in the business, whatever it is, as the distraction of what is really true for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing, it just struck me since I just moved, and you cannot recreate your old space in a totally different space. And so I'm often sitting and having something. Where does this one want to go? And in
Yeah.
order to find that out, for me, it's important to be quiet and allow the thing, quote unquote, to tell me where it would like to be.
This is so interesting, Karina, and I love that energy of talking to everything that is available in your house, whether it is a chair or a plant or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, as being present with it, and it is an energy on itself. And how does that energy wants to communicate with other energies in the house? You yourself also. That's beautiful. And is that also something that is more available to receive, to hear, to receive, to perceive, to know when we are willing ourselves to be silent, to silence our head, our thoughts, our feelings?
Interesting. There is a question that pops right now is, do I, at least it pops for me, do I have to choose to be silent? Or am I naturally silent?
Yeah, good question. A great question. Wow. And for me, hearing this question is yes, my nature is silent.
Mm-hmm.
It's my nature.
For me too.
Nevertheless, is it something I still can choose and is required sometimes to choose as I yeah, how quickly are we running with all the energies we receive and perceive that we forget,
Yeah,
quote unquote, our nature
yeah,
of silence?
yeah. What if it's
Hmm.
both?
Yeah.
Yeah, that we choose it and we choose. And what if it's easy for us to choose it because it's our nature? If
So true.
somebody is someone who needs to have 100 things going on in order to be in a similar space as you and I are when we are silent, it's not that one is right and the other one is
No.
wrong, but it's more what is our nature and are we willing to choose that which follows our nature?
Yeah. And some that comes up now is how often in the past I hear people saying that silence is an empty space, an empty place, which didn't compute with my experience of being, because for me, silence is full of energies, full of me, full of who I am. And is it therefore that I have also ease with the space of silence? Because I don't have the judgment there that it is an empty place.
I hear you, and I have a question. How much can you, how much more can you add to a cup that is already full?
Oh, so true. Wow.
And, you know, again, not right nor wrong. It's just the way you and I function in the world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
are whoever functions in a different way, are you willing to be that and to follow that instead of saying, oh, I should be,
Yeah.
and then fill in the blank?
You know, Karina, when there is something up in my world as a sadness or some inconvenient energy or whatever it is that is not my true natural way of being, I notice for myself that I tend to be in silence. And before I thought that I chose it as withdrawing me and not being present, but it is the opposite. It is really allowing myself to be truly present with everything that is going on and receiving all the information I require in that moment to whatever, yeah, to whatever choice or choices I can make out of that. So, silence itself, as we go through the conversation, we notice that there is so much in it. and still so much more to explore of what is true
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
silence and what is our true nature of silence.
Yeah.
Because you got me on the in the question of when it is full, how much is there? Yeah, isn't there to receive more? There is no, if I define it and conclude it as it is full, how much do I limit myself
Mm-hmm.
with that judgment?
Yeah. And how it may sound really strange right now, but how much is silence enlarging the cup?
Hmm, it makes me happy. So there is some truth in there for me. I cannot say for you, but for me it is because
But
when it makes me smile and it makes me light, then I know there is
there
some
is something to it.
there is something to it, and it is more likely a truth than it is a lie.
Yes. And I probably would not have become aware of it if it would not be true for me either.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Yeah. Wow. And is this mm, our nature silence, silence we are of nature, that is matching with nature itself as what we know as nature. And because it is resonating naturally,
yeah.
that we relax into it.
Yes. Yes.
So, stretching that, nature doesn't judge.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it also that knowing as we be our natural silence, the space we are in nature, there is that knowing that, oh, here there is no judgment required. How strange that looks, but is it that we still function from the idea that judgment is required? And judgment, positive and negative, whatever way, but that judgment is required to have an opinion, to have a point of view, to have something, to talk to or
Yeah.
discuss or whatever it is.
And, the thing is, because you brought up nature, this is the time of year in the cycle of nature where nature goes quiet too, where nature pulls within to recharge. So it can explode in the spring into growth and abundance and all of that.
Yeah,
And people talk about it that, yes, winter is the time to go within and to be quiet. And yet, on some level, isn't it also, as you said, the busiest time where we have all those sales and all those things that still need to be done before the end of the year? And I had all that list and I haven't done anything of that, and I still need to get some of it done. And it's
and even in
totally
that,
opposite to the silence, to the quiet, the solitude to some extent that nature does.
and it is, Karina, and even they match into that rush, rush, rush also. And I have to be busy to know what I want to do next year and what it will be next year, and then making a list
Mhm.
of that. So it is mixing all those energies. And where is the moment of being? Where is the moment of relaxation? Where is the moment of that silence?
Good
Yeah.
question. Yeah. Yep.
And then something that comes up now is then Christmas time. We have the holidays, but that rushing, 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 and then families coming together, and it's also going on. Although Christmas is seen, defined in general as a silent, familiar, how would I say it? It's more like, yeah, we come together, and the comfort and the loveliness and all those things, as it looks like a similar thing that is defined as silence also, where it is the opposite. In truth, it is the opposite.
Yeah. You can look at it that way. Yeah. I mean, for me, it is deeply relaxing, sort of recharging my batteries, sitting in front of the fireplace and just being, having a few candles lit, maybe, uh, maybe even listening to some low volume music, not that high vibration, and just being.
Yeah.
And
You
how
know,
much are we avoiding being?
that's that's and that is the distraction we choose every day
Mhm.
again to
Yeah.
avoid. And picture I saw in my head now listening to you, which I had also yesterday at the end of our conversation about that light. It was, as you mentioned, like more in silence in front of
Fireplace.
the fireplace and then candles on. It looks like it is a darker sphere as there is not that much light going on. And what I got yesterday and now in this moment also is there is so much more space also to shine as our natural shine, as
Mm.
we are. So there it came from also that we mentioned
Yeah.
that light in the silence. Is the light going on? Are we who we are, the light we are, is that shining so much brighter also in the space of silence?
Yeah.
And isn't that where Christmas goes about? As somehow there is an energy as that shining, that light, being ourselves. Wasn't that from the start the message of Christmas, which is from the start on interpreted in so many different ways that it is, yeah, so hidden now? What is the true message of Christmas?
And, listening to that, how much is there an invitation by being or through being who you are, being present? Because if I really look, let's say, having a conversation how many people are truly present with
Mm.
me when I talk about something? And how much is are we in the habit of already crafting a response, not even fully being present with what is being said? And how often do we then miss it?
Yeah.
There is no matching. It's sort of like this goes in this direction and this in a distance goes in the other direction, and we're thinking it's matching.
And this brings up something from, I'm calling it my previous life. It was in this body and
Not just you.
it was me. It is as I worked in the social area
Mhm.
with people, there we learn to be empathic, as it is something listening, true listening. Still, for me, there is something that you mentioned there. Is it really being present with one you are listening to, or is it already interpreted, what you hear interpreted from your point of views, and going and looking for how can I match this with what is there? And that is mixing both realities, as not one is full on and not the other is full on of
Mm,
being
yeah,
respected. And yeah,
yeah.
and it is, Karina, we weren't growing up with this idea of listening, true listening. As I see for myself, it was I had to listen to what my parents said,
Mm-hmm.
dictated, or what the teacher in school dictated, or the priest, or whatever it was. That was seen as listening. Listening was following. Do whatever they tell you, do
Yeah,
whatever they say. So, yeah, how much more is there now available to, yeah, receive and be also with listening? And is the space of silence a space that eases more the listening?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mm. Yeah. For me, silence, silence is such a magical, beautiful energy.
And what I just became aware of, how many people are willing to have silence in a conversation,
Mm.
or even when I'm facilitating a workshop, am I allowing for silence, for the space where things can settle in, where things, through settling in, can evoke responses, evoke awareness? And I mean, I just need to look at how uncomfortable 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, was I when there was silence. It's as if you don't know enough. Oh God,
Oh.
that brings up something else, but you don't know enough to keep a conversation going.
And how many times was it also you are not interested? You are not listening. You are not following.
Yep.
because you don't know what to talk about.
Yep.
There are so many things. Yeah, this is, yeah, this is so beautiful. And thank you for bringing this up, as I noticed in facilitation, I often take that space to be, and yeah, to be the invitation for all the energies to settle in
Mhm.
or to change or whatever it is. And because it was judged as slow, as not boom, 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 boom. And there was a knowing for me, wow, it's not, they don't receive it. It's something different. It's something
Mhm.
completely different because there was a
Yep.
lot going on. And in this moment, I realize and I acknowledge it at the same time now that I hope for a certain percentage that judgment as real and true. So there is cutting in that space, making that space smaller of the silence during facilitation. So thank you for this. Now, what can I choose now, knowing that I bought it and it's not true for me?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm.
And the
And
fun.
isn't it? Yeah, go,
Go ahead.
go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking, it's so true, truly, we aren't familiar for so many decades, lifetimes even, to be space and communicating
Mm-hmm.
with and in space, that I get it. I get it that it is for so many people strange and not done and not
Yeah.
knowing what to do with it or to go with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's basically hints at what I wanted to say is if you are willing to be silent, somebody else is becoming so uncomfortable that they will break the silence
Yeah.
with whatever it is that is up for them. And how strange is it to be with somebody else and to be in silence with that person, not having to have a conversation?
And is it true that you don't have a conversation, or don't you have a conversation out loud?
That is the difference. Yes. You have a silent conversation.
And it can be that it is one of the two that can hear that conversation and the
Yeah.
other one is shutting up. All is possible. And that's not different even when it is said out loud. Because how many times do we have a conversation in words, in language, hearable, that is not received by the other one or not
Yeah.
heard by the other one? So yeah, there is no difference, but it is, Karina. Oh yeah, as I noticed all the time, my dad, he chose so many times also silence as a way to go with things.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't really a talker through difficulties or upset or whatever. He chose always silence to do whatever there was required to do, and to be with it. And he was so often made wrong for it, as though it was even judged as he's not willing to have a conversation. He is not willing to deal with it, which in truth was completely the opposite. He dealt with it in a way that it worked for him. And
Yeah.
he got so much more clarity about everything that was going on, which probably wasn't even possible to get clear on when he would go really into a conversation, which likely would be more a discussion at that time.
And discussion, if you listen to the energy of the word, it brings up a definition that David Bohm had for discussion. Discussion is a ping pong game that each side intends to win.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. And it's interesting that he said each side has to win or can win. Was
Yeah,
it
and intends to win.
and intends to win? And isn't that also about that going side to side because there is
Yeah.
no listening?
Yep.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that word discussion for me, having that definition of Bohm really shows that ping pong game
Yeah.
energetically.
Yeah. Yeah. And caution is nearly literally pumping against something, and this is something that isn't working. So going the one side to another isn't working. So a discussion is where he mentions the winning parts or the losing parts, whatever way you want to look at it. But it is, and it didn't. Does discussion truly change the things, or is it the idea that it changed because I took it all out?
And how much are we, on some level, mislabeling, misdefining a conversation that I like to have, which is looking at something from all kinds of different perspectives.
Yeah,
And that can really create a lot of awareness. And
absolutely.
it's easier to do if you have someone else that you can play off. Oh, they just looked at it from this angle, which triggers me to look at it from that angle. And it's a playing with each other. And is that also a discussion?
Yeah, indeed. Wow, interesting. Interesting as I become aware of with that word discussion, for me, always had a negative connotation as it is that ping pong, ping
Mm-hmm.
pong that does not, yeah, not changing anything, while that conversation as going and having all those different way of going with things and yeah the point of views and but is that also a discussion? So what is discussion truly?
Yeah. And are we
Mm,
willing to drop all the definitions that we have of something
yeah,
and just being present
yeah,
with the conversation, whichever form that conversation takes?
yeah. And only with this word we have so many words, but isn't it also that the energy we ourselves put into words can change the
Mm,
definition of the
yeah,
word also,
yeah,
as it can be interpreted completely the opposite way as from which you speak to the other, but the other interpreted also from the
with,
energy the person is going to. Yeah, Wow. We started with silence and now we are ending up with discussion and going
With
everywhere.
anything but silence.
Interesting, really interesting. As we put so many lights on now, so somehow for me, this conversation will go on energetically
Yeah.
and leading me to more questions even and questioning myself and whatever it is. So, how does it get any better than this?
Yeah.
Wow, great.
What else can we open up to by being silent?
Yeah, yeah. Wow. I'm curious. I'm curious. What will this or where will this lead us up to next week conversation?
I
Hmm.
am curious too. Because if there is one thing that I have been noticing is, um, I mean, each one of us is living our lives with what is going on and coming up, etc., etc. And yet, I'm also aware of how much the Monday conversations are impacting the following, and then the conversation that we have on Tuesday during the Facebook Live are impacting in a way the following week.
Yeah, so true.
There, nothing is in and of itself.
Exactly. And it is that movement that is so beautiful. As for me, I can only speak for me. I'm not sure what it is for you, but those conversations we have on Monday and then the Facebook Live, it is the I receive again and again from
Yeah,
these conversations, and it is coming out of our mouth. It's yeah, for some people it can be weird. How can you receive from what you are telling yourself? But it is. It is this energy of moving other energies towards possibilities, and it is opening up every week again other doors, other
yeah.
possibilities, new explorations of sitting with or questioning or whatever it is. There is always more.
What is going on for me, even at times, is the fact that we have a conversation about that. And then something is going on during the week, and I hear either what you were saying or what I was saying, and saying, oh, and there is a totally different level of awareness with it
Yeah,
that goes deeper. Even though we said it, we came from a certain level of awareness, and then it goes deeper and deeper and deeper.
exactly.
And that is what you talk about with the movement
And the receiving.
and the receiving, yes.
Yeah,
And so it is a wonderful play in a way that can be had.
it is.
Who else is willing to play with that?
I'm curious.
Invitation.
A great, beautiful, different invitation.
Okay.
So, thank you, Karina. I
Thank
loved
you,
it.
Marianne. And we'll play next week again.
We will. See
Have
you next
fun.
week.
Have a great time. And maybe choose some silence.
Hmm,
Just maybe.
just a little.
Just a little. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.